Today we're going to wander with St. Hildegard of Bingen. Her feast day is September 17th, and she is the patron saint of writers and composers. St. Hildegard lived from 1098 to 1179. Stories, jokes, bits of music, rhymes, you come up with them all the time. If you have time, you write them down, and if you're lucky, you'll find someone to share them with. The process goes something like this. You see a blank sheet of paper, and after just a few seconds of thought, you know how you want to fill it up. You draw mountains and forests, maybe even another planet. You draw aliens fighting or horses galloping in a field. Or maybe you sit down at the piano and strike a key. You hit another, then another, and before you know it, you've made up a little tune. You are creating. Did you know that human beings are the only animals that really create? Yes, animals make things, but that's not the same as creating. A certain kind of bird only makes a certain kind of nest. She doesn't wake up in the morning and try to figure out how she's going to design her nest that day. She doesn't write a new tune to warble every day. Her design and her tune are instincts given to her by God. That bird can't make anything new. But you can make things up, all day and all night, in ways that no other person has done before. All of us can, because the power to create is a gift God gave us when He made us in His image. Whenever we use this gift of creativity, we're doing important work, hand in hand with God. It's work that can even bring holiness and grace into the world. When we think of saints who are especially blessed with the gifts of creativity and imagination, one of the first to come to mind is Hildegard of Bingen. Hildegard of Bingen was simply an amazing woman. She lived during the 12th century. At a very young age, she was sent to live in a convent to be educated by an intelligent woman named Judah. Hildegard lived in that convent for almost 25 years learning, doing hard work, and praying. When Judah died, Hildegard was elected the abbess or leader of the sisters living in the convent. Soon after that, Hildegard decided to start her own convent. In her convent, nuns would lead a tougher life than the one they were used to. Hildegard moved up the river with several other nuns, and they settled there. They built a new place where women could live and work together, praying and giving glory to God. That's impressive, but it's not all. It's not why we're telling Hildegard's story here. Hildegard lived during the Middle Ages. She was one of the most creative people of her time. From the time she was a little girl, she had beautiful visions of heaven, the angels, and saints. She spent years writing long books in which she described the whole world as she understood it and saw it in her visions. She used all of the scientific knowledge of her time to describe how the world was made, what was in the heavens, and what was under the earth. She described people too. She explained how she thought God put souls into our bodies. She thought a tongue of fire came down from heaven and filled us up while we were new in our mother's wombs. She wrote a book bringing together everything she knew about how to use plants and animals to heal illnesses. Kings respected her wisdom and wrote to her for advice. Hildegard was very critical of some priests and bishops of her time who lived in far too much wealth and splendor. She wrote letters and spoke of how these Christian leaders should start living the simple life of Jesus. Although she was critical, or perhaps because she had the courage to speak out, these same bishops and priests, and even the Pope, read her books and asked her for advice too. Hildegard also wrote music. In fact, Hildegard was one of the earliest composers of music in Europe. She was certainly the first composer whose life we know anything about. If you listen to Hildegard's music, you will hear pure, steady voices singing about God's powerful presence in all of creation. She wanted the voices to sound like angels singing. Her music was about Jesus's and God's love for us. She also wrote music about Mary and the other saints. Because she lived in a convent, Hildegard wrote music for women's voices. She also wrote one of the earliest musical plays. In the play, which the nuns in the convent performed for each other, goodness and evil fought for power over a human soul. Hildegard created beautiful music that lifts our spirits a bit closer to heaven. She used her imagination and her talents to share with the rest of us exactly what she saw and heard herself, the glory and the beauty of God. St. Hildegard of Bingen wrote music to help others draw closer to God. What are you good at creating? How can what you create help people understand God's love?